All right, welcome everyone to today's virtual tech talk. Meet Libby. Today we're going to be talking about Libby, the app from Overdrive that lets you read ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. But before we get started, I did just want to do a few housekeeping details. For those of you that are just joining us, we do ask that your cameras and microphones stay off during today's session. If you have questions, of course, we want to hear them. Go ahead and throw them into the chat box. My coworker, Kelsey, is monitoring the chat box, and she'll turn her microphone on as we break and ask your questions for you. I should also say that, I don't know everything. Kelsey doesn't know everything. Any librarian you meet doesn't know everything. So we're going to try our best to answer any questions you might have today. But I will be following up next week with an email for any questions we may not be able to answer in today's session. Also, in that follow-up email that you should receive next week, I'm going to send you the slides from today's session. To be honest, there's like 4 slides, so there's not that many. But I'll also be sending you a link to this recording that will be posted on the library's YouTube channel. I do tend to caveat that comment by just saying sometimes our recordings don't work. We're still kind of learning this virtual world even 2 years in, but we're up to like a 95% rate at this point. So really hoping to get this one up there because we've got some exciting new things to share with you about Libby. So before we get started, I should introduce myself. My name is Casey. I am the Digital Services Coordinator for the Martin County Library System. What that means is I get to learn all the new fun technology and then share it with you. I'm based out of Blake, but some of you, I see your names are familiar and I might have met you at a different branch. I do tend to float across all 6 of our library branches. But today I'm joined by my colleague, Kelsey. Kelsey, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to say hi and just a little where you work and what you do?
Hey there, my name is Kelsey. I am a library specialist and I am currently located at the Moorgate branch. And I sort of do everything here that needs to be done, including help with Libby and any tech questions.
That's right. And Kelsey is an avid reader. And so we're happy to have her here today. She's a big fan of Libby, as are we all. All right, so for today's session, I'm going to just intro Libby, we've already done that. I'm going to start by talking about Libby compatible devices, because this is some of the changes that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. Then I'm going to show you how to log on to Libby for the first time if you've never done it. From there, we're going to do a pretty comprehensive overview of the Libby app. We're going to show you how to browse the collection, search the collection. I'm going to show you how to read your ebook and listen to any audiobooks you may check out. We'll talk about how to manage your holds using Libby, and then we'll end with preferences, notifications, where to get help if you need it. So that's kind of what's on tap for today. So with that being said, I'm going to dive right in. It is a pretty full day today. This program I do schedule for 90 minutes. I'm hoping we won't need that entire time, but just in case. So as I mentioned, Libby is an app that you can download onto your mobile device. Libby connects you with content from Overdrive. Now, the library has a partnership with Overdrive. We pay them basically, partnership we're a customer. Because ebooks, audiobooks, digital magazines, those are all very popular these days, especially with the pandemic. People don't want to go out. They have learned that they can listen to an audiobook while going for a walk around the neighborhood. And honestly, it's been pretty addicting, and we've seen the uptick in digital content just grow and grow and grow over the last couple of years. We did used to have a couple years ago, I can't remember the exact date we transitioned. I want to say like September, October of 2020. We moved to Overdrive. Our previous app was called Access 360. And then we moved to Overdrive, and it has been nothing but rainbows and sunshine ever since. Users, staff, strangers, like people will come up to me on the street and tell me how much they love Libby. And so we're hoping you do too. It's a very user-friendly app. And so usually like we don't even these days get a lot of questions on Libby. Most of the questions are, oh, I didn't know I could do that, rather than how do I do that? So that's why today is going to be fairly comprehensive, and why we're going to kind of go through some of the more hidden features that you might not know about, kind of with the general understanding that Libby is fairly easy to navigate, and hopefully after this introduction, you'll feel confident in using it. Now, I do want to mention that Overdrive is the company that provides us the content, but Libby is the way you access the Overdrive collection. And just like with our print books, we decide which books to buy and how many copies we should have in our collection. We have a team that does that. Our collections manager and her team do that on a regular basis. Overdrive used to have a different app called Overdrive. That Overdrive app is going to be phased out throughout 2022. The first transition happens in a couple weeks. I believe it's February 22nd is when the old Overdrive app will no longer be offered in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. A lot of people have spent 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years using the Overdrive app. So those people over the course of the next year will be asked to move over to Libby. Now, they basically do very similar things, but just in different ways. And to be honest, Overdrive was built 10 years ago, and technology has changed drastically in those 10 years. So a few years ago, the company Overdrive decided to just start from scratch with the Libby app. So all the modern features that you would expect from a modern app are going to be available in Libby, and then kind of the older classic Overdrive app that people used 10 years ago, that's going to be phased out. That's what's going to be phased out over 2022, which is why we thought this was a great time to revisit all the reasons we love Libby. You can download the Libby app from the Google Play Store if you have an Android device or a mobile device or tablet. And if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you can download the Libby app from the Apple App Store. I'll be showing you another thing you can do if you don't like reading books on your phone or listening to audiobooks. You can actually use your web browser to go just to the website, libbyapp.com. So if you use Safari or Chrome or Edge or Firefox, you'll just type in libbyapp.com, and it's a very, very similar experience than if you were to use like a touchscreen device a mobile device that you might carry with you all the time. I'm actually going to be demonstrating from libbyapp.com today. So if you're following along, you might see 1 or 2 differences if you're following along on a mobile device. And that's pretty much it. I'll try to point it out where I can, but if not, feel free to throw your question into the chat and wondering why my screen looks different than yours. We have found that it's easier to demonstrate using libbyapp.com because you can see my mouse. So you wouldn't know where I was tapping on the screen if I was using a mobile device. So this way you can follow along. So Libby is fairly easy to download, just like you would regular. It's a free download, so nothing you need to pay for. Like I said, once you're in, you will use your library card, and the library kind of covers you from there. So I'm going to flip over from doing the slides to go ahead and diving into Libby. And Kelsey, I'm going to ask for your help. Can you see the appropriate part of my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can see that there.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to try to drag that down. You know what? I'm going to share this one more time. Okay. All right, 1 minute. Okay, great. So this is what it's going to look like when you download Libby or visit libbyapp.com. The first question is, do you have a library card? We're hoping you do already, but if not, all you need to do is tap not yet. And then it'll actually bring you to the library's, webpage eventually, where you can request to get a library card, or just come in, stop in anytime, and we'll be happy to give you one on the spot too. I'm going to go ahead and tap yes for now. there's a few different options if you already have a library card, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to search for a library here by tapping search for your library. And just like anything with technology, there's probably 3 or 4 different ways to do the same thing. So it's just a matter of preference. But here you can actually search for your library by name, city, branch, or zip code. And I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of the zip code because there's no duplication. So I could search for the Cummings Library in Palm City. I could search for Stewart, and I would eventually find Martin County too. But I'm just a big fan in general of using my zip code to search. And as you can see, Martin County Public Library was on that list there. And I just went ahead and tapped on that to go to the collection. Now here it is going to ask me again if I want to sign in with my card, or I don't have one actually. I would like a card, but I have my card with me today. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in by using that long number on the back of your library card. Not a multitasker. I can't type and talk at the same time. So no spaces you'll see. I'm going to tap next. And then I should say, if you tap that get in touch, that'll bring you to the library's website too. And then in case you didn't know, we also implemented about 2 years ago a 4-digit PIN system. And this is typically the last 4 digits of your telephone number that we have on file. So if you're struggling with your PIN, try the last 4 digits of the telephone number we have on your account. And if that doesn't work, go ahead and give the library a call. All right, and once you're signed in, you'll be able to see a digital image of your library card. It's probably going to look very similar to mine. It's got the logo here in the bottom right corner. If you wanted to rename your card, yours might not have a name to it. I've named mine already Libby Demo to make sure I know the difference between this card and my personal card. But if I wanted to rename the card, I could just tap rename and rename it there and save. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and tap next. And then here is kind of the overall view of our home screen here. Now, I do just want to mention that it's asking me this question about the Kindle. I'm going to skip for now because I will talk about what that means a little bit later. But just so I kind of talk you through everything, that all the steps I'm taking so that you know.
Looks so, but can we just do a quick overview of what each icon is now that we have them up on the screen?
At the bottom, sure, like at the very bottom of my screen, there's a magnifying glass, a building that looks like it's got columns in the front, like a library. In the very center of the bottom of the screen, there's 3 lines stacked, which indicates our menu option. To the right of that is books. A little stack of it looks like 2 books. That stack of 2 books is indicating your shelf. Okay, so whenever you're looking for what you've checked out or what you've put on hold, you're gonna tap on that stack of books right there. And then finally, the last icon looks like a little clock. We'll talk about the timeline at the very end of today's session, but that's the 5th icon in the row of 5 icons down at the bottom. The last thing, though, I just want to say before I move on, if you're ever not sure where you are on Libby, the location where you currently are is going to be highlighted. And on my screen, it's this like tealish color. You'll see as I flip over to the search icon becomes, it's actually a little bit difficult to see. Let me tap on the books and you'll see the books go from kind of black outline to that colored. So just if you ever get lost and don't know where you are in Libby, that's one thing you can look for. But I'm going to start by having us browse the library's collection, because a lot of us like to walk in the door of the library and go to a particular shelf. Maybe you go to mystery, maybe you go to the new books, maybe you go to large print. And so that's what this home screen offers you right when you walk in the door. Right up top, we have our Lucky Day collection. And if you use the library's print collection, you might be familiar with our Martin's Most Wanted program. These are very popular titles that have a shorter checkout period because we want that turnover. We know people are going to read them very quickly. And we also know we've got a long list of people waiting. And so The Lucky Day collection in Libby functions very similarly to the Martin's Most Wanted collection that you'd see inside the library. So any titles you see here are going to be available only for a 7-day checkout versus a typical 14-day checkout. And these books, you don't place holds on them and you can't renew them. So you just kind of have to know, like if you check out a book from this list here, from the Lucky Day collection, then that book, you won't be able to renew it. You better make the time to read it while you can, because some of us have been in the situation where we've got like a chapter or two left and we're racing the clock on that time period. So that's just a little bit about our Lucky Day collection. I'm just going to scroll briefly through some of these other collections here. We've got our newly added collection, Take Care of Yourself. This looks more like a self-care, self-help section. These are kind of a digital replication of the displays that you might see our staff put together in each of our library locations. So I know Kelsey does a lot of our really cool library displays where she'll pick books from the collection based around a theme, and then display them on a shelf so that people like can easily see them and grab them and check them out. So this functions very similarly. Young adult fantasy, true crime, and these will change just like in our inside of our branches. We change them on a monthly basis. These digital displays will change on a regular basis as well. So that's kind of fun to check in about. I did want to mention these preset filters here up at the top. We have just added popular, random, available now. I'm going to have us browse by subject because I know a lot of people, when they come into the library, they have a certain genre or subject in mind when they ask us for book recommendations. So if you want to browse historical fiction or short stories, you can do that in this subject section. So I'm going to go ahead and just to give you an idea, we've got health and fitness, politics, horror, psychology. I'm going to check out self-improvement because you know what? I'm still stuck in January with my New Year's resolutions. And here is where then I can browse, kind of like going into a bookstore, browsing the different topics by title and by subject or genre. Once I'm in this section where I'm browsing the book titles themselves rather than just the displays, I want to point out a couple different things. First, I've mentioned already that Libby offers eBooks and audiobooks. Now, a really easy way to see that just at a glance is by the cover. So eBooks will be more of a rectangular shape, and audiobooks will be a square shape. And then underneath that square, you're going to see the amount of time that it would take to listen to that audiobook. It's also got this little earbud. Oops, I clicked on that accidentally. It's got that little earbud feature. Just go back to kind of indicate also the headphones, that it's something that you listen to rather than something that you would read the text. Now, right off the bat, if you wanted to borrow, you could click borrow. If you wanted to read a sample, you could do that. I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail, but I just want to give you this general overview, and we'll talk about tags as well. I wanted to point out one other difference that you can see right off the bat, and that's this little library card icon here in the upper right corner of each book. You'll notice that each title has a slightly different look to this icon. If we have a book in our collection and you can borrow it right now, you'll see this little library card has a plus sign, meaning you can add it to your shelf immediately, right this minute, which is why you'll see that word borrow right there. However, some titles, people have already checked out all the digital copies that we have. And here's where I like to just kind of explain that digital copies of books work very similarly to print copies of our books. We purchase so many books. We might purchase 6 copies of a book, and then people can place a hold on it, and only one person can check out 1 copy at a time. That's generally how eBooks work in the digital publishing industry. It's kind of like a regular book too. It will wear out over time. So sometimes a publisher might give us 26 checkouts. That's a fairly common industry standard. Or they might say you can have as many checkouts as you want for the next 2 years. And so the publishers want to make sure that we continue to buy a new copy, because a digital copy won't wear out like a physical copy or get lost or damaged, and we have to remove it. And so they place these other types of limitations on it for libraries. So if you're wondering why you have to place a hold on a digital book, that's exactly why, because we only buy a certain amount of copies for our library system. And that being said, you might be the first person in line, or you might be the 101st person in line. Well, hopefully not that many, but this little calendar icon will give you an indication of how long the holds list is for a certain book. So if I look at this one here, I don't see any of those white dots on the calendar, which to me tells me that there's not very long of a wait. However, this one right here has quite a few. I kind of have to squint to see it, I'll be honest. They're pretty tiny, but I see quite a few dots on this calendar. Just to give me, again, like a very quick off the bat overview of what's going on the screen without even tapping on anything. Now, if I wanted to tap on that calendar, it will give me more information. It'll tell me that it's about a 14-week wait to read this book. It will also tell me that the library has 1 copy and that 6 people are waiting for that 1 copy, which is why it's about a 14-week wait. All right, so that's kind of information you can get. If I were to tap on this one that doesn't have a lot of white dots, it's going to tell me it's about a 2-week wait. The library has 3 copies and 2 people are waiting in line. So I'm pretty much the next person who's going to get it. So again, that's just information that you can find readily available right off the bat. I'm going to go ahead and I'm curious, maybe because if you were a visual browser, I don't know about you, but I like to kind of browse the shelf, look at a book based on the cover, open it up and read the inside of the jacket to read more about the book. And that's exactly what would happen if you were to tap right on that book cover. You'll see kind of the inside jacket information, same things that you would see if you were looking at the physical book. You could read a little bit more about it. Again, you can read a sample. You can create a tag. Now, a tag is something that allows you to kind of organize any books that you might want to read in the future. So if I tap tag, I can create a new tag here. And then I might call this self-care or self-improvement, whatever I want to call it. These tags are just for me personally. They don't go to Libby. I don't share them with other people. It's really just for me to kind of categorize any books that I want to read in the future. Because sometimes that's the hardest part, is remembering all the books that were recommended to you. So that's how you add a tag. And I'll talk to you later about then how to find your tags on your shelf. But here you'll see a little description of the book, and some are longer than others. You'll have information about the author, the publisher, when it was released. I tend to look at that quite a bit. More, again, same information on how many copies are available, and then just some general rating information. As you scroll down, you'll see kind of that whole self-improvement list. You'll see more of that. Or of course, you can scroll back up to the top to go back by tapping that self-improvement up in the upper left corner to go back to the results of your browsing. I want to kind of show you what it looks like to borrow. So I'm going to tap on borrow. It's going to tell you you're borrowing this title for 14 days. And then all you need to do from there is tap that big borrow button. And it will confirm that you have borrowed Think Again, or insert your favorite title here, for 14 days. Here it's going to give you a few different options: open book, keep browsing, or go to shelf. I'm going to go ahead and go to shelf. Actually, let's keep browsing for now. So I can go right back to where I was. That's basically the back button. So if I wanted to go through and continue looking for other books, I might not want to read this right now because I might not have time. So I might want to add a tag to another one. You'll see once I have created a tag, I can just click on it to add another tag there and tap out of that pop-up to have it go away. And then I can continue to tag books that I might want to read in the future based on this search results. So that's just a little bit about browsing. Now, if I wanted to go back and see more subjects, I could simply tap on that. Or what I will be honest, I tend to do is I just go back down to the bottom of the screen, find that library icon again, and tap on it to get me back to my home page. Now that's browsing. I'm going to talk about searching, and then I'm going to pause for any questions. So if you've had any questions come up and haven't thrown them into the chat, feel free to do that at any time, and we'll pause right after we talk about searching. Now, we demonstrated what it looks like to browse, but sometimes people give you a recommendation and you just want to be able to search for it. They might say, oh, you have to read this author, or you have to read this particular book. And to search in Libby, you're going to go to that magnifying glass icon again and tap on that. Now up at the top, you'll see the search bar. So I'm going to tap in that search bar, and I'm just going to search for an author that someone might have recommended to me. Now, what I love about Libby is they have a pretty great search suggestion feature. So I can never remember how to spell this author's name, Elin Hilderbrand. And so I get her mixed up with somebody else, and I can never remember her last name even. So I just tend to type in the first name and then it pops up, and it's a wonderful thing. So I'm just going to tap on the search suggestion. You can search by author, title, and by series. So if I searched, Harry Potter, it would come up with all the Harry Potter books. But I'm just going to go ahead and tap on that to then give my list of all the different search results that I have here. So right underneath this, my search terms, I do have it showing that there are 22 books available and 19 audiobooks in the Martin County Library Systems collection. Now, here's where I want to talk a little bit about preferences. So preferences are what we call sticky, in that they stick. So if I were to say, you know what, I never listen to audiobooks, I only ever want to see ebooks, I would set my preference to only show me book preferences. Now, when I tap apply preferences, it's only ever going to show me ebooks no matter what I search for. So if I browse by self-improvement like we just did, it would only show me ebooks. If I search for a particular author or title, it would only show me ebooks. So that stickiness is what I wanted to be sure to mention today. So let me just go back to the library. And I don't know if you noticed, but this number went down. That was in the 50s, I believe. So that Lucky Day collection, I'm just going to tap on that. And you'll see that preference, that number 1, that preference is still set. And that's what we mean by sticky. Now, sometimes we accidentally set a preference and we're wondering, like, what happened to all the books I thought were in here? So if you see a little number sign next to that preference, you might want to check and see what your preferences are set at. And you can remove these anytime. I'm going to go ahead and remove this and then apply preferences again. And now it's showing me the 21 audiobooks that it was hiding before because I asked it to hide those. So that's what we mean when we talk about sticky preferences. But I'm going to go back to my search results. No preferences set, but I still have the option to filter over here on the right-hand side by using the Refine tool. Now, the Refine tool is only going to filter your results for this particular search. All right, so it's not sticky. So if you just want to temporarily filter the search results to help you find something real quick, you will use the refine tool. If you want a preference to stay every time you use Libby, you'll use the preferences tool. Now, I tend to refine, so sometimes I go on road trips and I don't remember to check out a book until the night before I leave. So I love listening to audiobooks. So I will often use the refine tool to filter by audiobook. And then I also like to use the filter, the availability filter, where I can tap available now. And that way it's only going to show me books that I can check out right now, listen to in my car, and have a great time on my road trip. So that's a little bit about the refine tool. And you'll see here, there's quite a few options you can refine by. The subject might change based on your search. If you want to refine by language, audience, what format it supports. So are you reading with a Kindle? We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then of course your sort by option too. So just as you explore Libby a bit more, I'm going to tap out of that to close that box. But as you explore Libby a little bit more, you'll kind of notice these things and just to be aware of what's available. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you just that audiobooks look very similar to eBooks. Again, I've refined my search results to only show me audiobooks. And so that's why I'm only seeing books that have the duration of the book listed, as well as those little headphones. So I'm going to tap on that cover. Here I could read a little bit more about the book, just like I could with an ebook. If it's also available as an ebook, it might show you that here. I kind of like that because sometimes I might accidentally tap on an audiobook when I'm looking for an ebook and vice versa. But again, it's going to have the same information. The only difference is that it's going to tell you the duration, show you the duration. The only main difference, I'll say. Again, if I want to borrow this book, I'm just going to tap borrow. Oops, I tapped on the calendar, sorry. Tap borrow. Confirm, yes, I would like to borrow. And it's at that point that actually the borrowing happens. So that's just a little bit about searching and browsing for books in Libby. I'm going to go ahead and pause here and ask if there's any questions on what we've covered so far.
Casey, we did have a question earlier about adding another library card to your Libby account. However, I do know that we will cover that towards the end of the presentation.
Yes, when we cover our settings and our notifications, I'll show you how to add a second library and additional library cards. So thank you, that's perfect. Yeah, because we know a lot of you are fortunate enough to be members of several different libraries. And that's what we love about Libby too, is that you can see all your different libraries from the same, or have access to all your different libraries right from the same app. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and move forward and just do a quick little demo on how to read an ebook and an audiobook by visiting our shelf. Now I'm going to tap on this book icon down at the bottom. So we've already talked about search. We've already talked about browsing the library's collection. I'm going to skip over that middle icon and then tap on the book icon as we go through shelf. Now up at the top of my screen, under the word shelf, I've got three options here. We're going to focus first on loans, but we will also cover holds and tags before the end of today. Now I'm going to tap on loans. We're actually already there. Sorry, that was kind of a shelf overview that we were on before. But as I tap on loans, here it's showing me all of the books that I currently have on loan, AKA checked out from the Martin County Library System. So as I scroll down, you'll see the different books that I have available here. I am going to go ahead and start with this ebook that I checked out. We also have magazines. Sorry, I mentioned this briefly earlier. Magazines are so great. It's so great that we have magazines. There's a lot of really popular titles that we have. So if you haven't checked out magazines on Libby yet, definitely do that. I'm actually if you go back to the home screen, let me just do this real quick. Tap on home. Of course, you can search. Oprah is a really popular one because Oprah discontinued the print version of Oprah, I would say about a year ago. So that's been a really popular one. But here, right in that first home screen are these guides, and there's a magazine guide. So that will just allow you to browse our magazines too. But I'm going to go back to the shelf for now by tapping on that book icon and then scrolling up to the top because I want to show you what it looks like to read an ebook with the Libby app. Over here on the right-hand side, we're going to go through these options, but it'll kind of give you a little history. It'll give you a little history on when you borrowed it. If you've read the book, you know, what percentage of it you've read it before. I've actually read this book in the past, which is why it's saying 100%. If you've borrowed it earlier in the week, so this was borrowed a week ago, which is why it's due in 7 days, when it's due, and then we'll talk about managing your loan too. But I'm going to go ahead up with read with because I want to talk a little bit about the Kindle. Libby is an app that allows you, today's class is very focused on Libby, but it's an app that allows you to manage, to check out books, place holds, manage your books, and also read your books, listen to your books. So it kind of does everything that you would need. However, some people have a device, a dedicated e-reader, like a Kindle Paperwhite, and those are the black and white, small, very light, compact devices, holds a charge forever. The same could be said for Kobo is another option, and then the Nook, if you're familiar with any of those. So these are dedicated e-readers that you can use to access the library's digital content. Now with Libby, you can send a book directly from Libby to any Kindle app or device. And this is what I skipped earlier in the session when I said I'm going to press skip right when we first logged onto the library's account. And I said I'm going to come back to it because I wanted to talk about it in the context of eBooks here. So if I had a Kindle Paperwhite that I wanted, like a separate device, not my phone, not my tablet, but like a Kindle e-reader, which is a Kindle Paperwhite. I think Kindle Oasis is another version, and then just a Kindle, like the original Kindle is just called Kindle. If I had one of those and I wanted to send this book to my e-reader, I would tap on Kindle, and the next step is actually going to prompt me to log on to my Amazon.com account. So if I were to tap on Kindle right here, it would send me to Amazon.com and it would ask me for my Amazon username and password. And that's because your Kindle device is associated with Amazon. So for those of you with e-readers, keep that in mind. I'll just do a plug. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to be focused more on e-reader. So today is focused just on Libby and navigating Libby. But if you have an e-reader, if you really like that black and white screen, you know, a lot of us don't like reading on our phones or our tablets, but a lot of us do. So we understand and we want to make sure you've got all your options available to you that depending on what device you have. So join us for that session. It's going to be 2 weeks from today, which is the 18th of February, if you want to hear more about e-readers. But today we're going to be talking about Libby. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Libby because that's the app we're using today and show you what reading a book on Libby looks like. Now here I can tap to read an ebook on Libby, kind of like swiping a book on turning a page on in a print book. I'm going to come to the right side of the page and tap. All right, so I'm going to come to the right side of the page. I'm trying to get to past the first couple pages. Now, here's where my screen might look a little bit different than yours. If you have a wider screen, you might have the option to see 2 pages at a time. And this is a funny book to start with. 2 pages at a time. So right now I see, like, just like if I were to have an open book, I see the left side of the page and the right side of the page. If you have a smaller screen, and this is where I was fiddling with my screen size earlier. So if you were reading maybe on a phone versus a tablet, you might only see one column here. So just know that if my screen looks a little bit different, that's going to be why. So if I wanted to turn the page, I think I already said, if I want to turn the page, I would just tap on the right side of the screen. If I want to go back a page, I would tap on the left side of the screen. So that's just basic ebook navigation. It's funny how often I have to remind myself of this when I'm using my Kindle. But tap on the right to turn the page forward, tap on the left to turn the page back. There are a lot of different options available in Libby though. One of the other things you can do is highlight a word. So let me look at this. I'm going to press and hold my finger on the screen, and you'll see when you press and hold your finger, there's a blue highlight that shows up. If I let go, I'll see a few different options pop up on the bottom of my screen. I've got the option to define that word, which if it was a word I didn't know, I think in this case, it's a character's name or a story. If I wanted to search a definition, I could tap on define. If I wanted to highlight this word, I could do that. Or actually a character is a good example for this. If I wanted to find where this character appears in the rest of the book, I could also do that as well. So those are your options there. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight that with yellow. And then I might do it again. So just as a reminder of what I did, I pressed and hold on a word and then I let go. But if I wanted to do more than a word, maybe I want to highlight a couple sentences, I would just drag my finger across the screen. And now when I let go, I'm going to see the same options. And in this case, I'll just pick pink highlight. If I wanted to define, once again, I'd press and hold. Let me show you that define real quick. These aren't very good words to define, but I'll just tap define just so you can kind of see. Here's my little dictionary. Kind of has a lot. And to get out of that, I'll just tap anywhere outside of that pop-up. If I wanted to, actually, let me go with dodge. Search within book. I've actually used this before when I see a character again and I'm like, I can't remember which character they were or how they were introduced. I'll go back in and search within book. And again, I did that just by pressing and holding my finger on the screen, and then the options popped up when I let go. To get rid of those options, I'm just going to tap anywhere outside of it. Usually in the middle of my screen is where I tend to tap. That's how you kind of navigate those options when you press and hold. Now, the other thing I like to, more importantly, in my opinion, but depends on how you read and what you do, I like to show the menu options, especially when you're first getting started using Libby. So when you tap on the right-hand side, we talked about turning the page forward, tap on the left, you turn the page back. If you just tap in the center, so before we pressed and held our finger on the screen, but if we tap in the center, it pulls up all the different menu options that are available. Now you'll see here, right in this center orb, I think Overdrive calls it, you'll see the cover, and you'll see if you tap, right below that, sorry, I'm just going to do that again for you. Tap in the center of the screen to pull up the menu options. The center orb will show you the cover, and right now we're in the prologue, and I know that because it says prologue here. And if I tap on prologue, it will show me the table of contents. So I can go forwards or backwards. If I wanted to skim, maybe this was, a book on self-care and I wanted to read what the author had to say about charged conversations. I could browse the table of contents and quickly go to that chapter. Maybe highlight a quote that I really like by pressing and holding. And that's just a fun way to navigate ebook. So things we've done in the past with pen and paper, just know that you have that option available to you as well. You can also go forward chapter by, it'll tell you you're one page into this chapter and you've got 38 pages to go. So if you want to skip forward to chapter 9 in this instance, I could do that there. You can also drag this timeline down at the bottom. It kind of looks like a piano keys, doesn't it? Oh, that's a nice graphic. But if you also wanted to kind of scroll through that way, you could do that as well, kind of like flipping through the pages. If you find a page you like, there is a little bookmark icon up here. In addition to the highlighting tool we already talked about, there's a little bookmark icon. You can just tap on that and it's going to add a bookmark to that spot. You can actually do that without pulling up the menu, just by tapping in the upper right corner there. So again, this is kind of nitty gritty stuff with Libby, but just so that you're aware of what's available. Now I'm going to pull up that menu again, I just tapped in the center of my screen because I do want to talk about one of my favorite things about Libby, especially for those of us with different needs, is the fact that I can change what Libby looks like based on my personal preferences. And to do that, I can just tap on this little A button. So again, it's one of those common symbols. If you see that A, usually is referring to some type of font tool or text tool that if you click on or tap on, you'll be able to make some adjustments. And in this case, you know what, I'm going to pick a different page so that you can see the text. There we go. So I'm going to tap on the screen to pull up my menu, tap on the letter A to go to my text tools, or appearance as Overdrive calls it. And one of the things I love is that I can change the size of the text. It's gonna go through a different screen. I'm trying to get it so that it's a text and not a graphic. Note to self, pick fiction books for this example. But you can see as I change the text scale, it's going to change according to what I need on my device. So no longer do we have to buy a separate large print version and a regular print version. You can check out whichever version you want, or it's all the same version, and then you can adjust it accordingly. So it's a really great feature that it just helps you get books a little bit quicker too. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. The other thing is lighting. So it's set to default, but you can change it to, I think bright is the default, but if you wanted to change it to sepia, that's kind of that sepia tone look that's softer on the eyes. And then of course, there's also dark mode as well. So a lot of people these days really prefer dark mode. It doesn't emit that blue light that some people have a sensitivity to. So just know that that's an option available in Libby based on whatever needs you may have. It also helps with legibility. The other thing that you can do is change the font. So the text itself. So we just have it set right now to the publisher's default, but if I wanted to change it to Scholar, you'll see the font change. Seems to be a little bit of a delay here. Oh, there we go. So this is a little cleaner font, a little less serif-y. Again, just personal preferences. I will say that there is an open dyslexic font, which Overdrive has said helps people with dyslexia. So something about the way it is laid out, I'll tap on it just so you guys can see. Open dyslexia, something about the way it's designed helps people with dyslexia. So just again, another great tool that if this is something that pertains to you, or maybe your neighbor or a friend, as you chit chat, you can share the wonderful things about Libby. I'm going to go ahead and change it back to the publisher's default just for today. And then again, to get out of any of these pop-ups, you'll just tap anywhere outside of the pop-up to get back to your book. General rule applies for Libby. Now, there was a couple other features I wanted to show you about in that menu. So once again, I'm going to tap on the center of my screen and it's going to pull up all the things around the edge of the screen. Here, if I wanted to search, again, there's that same option. Only this time I don't have to highlight it. Maybe I just want to search the word. Well, I saw extremely in there before, so I'm going to search extremely and see all the instances. This time I type in the word and look for it rather than seeing it on the screen. So that's a little bit of how to search within the book. To get out of it, I'm going to tap outside of that. Pull up my menu by tapping in the center of the screen again. And the last thing I'll show you for an ebook is in the upper right corner. if you want to see, if you want to go back and review all the things you've highlighted or any bookmarks that you've placed in that book, this is where you'll go to do it. So you can scroll through. That's why I wanted to show you a couple highlights. Once everything's highlighted, you can easily go back. And I don't have this in my notes, but just so you know, those highlights don't go to Overdrive or Libby. Like nobody can see those highlights except you. And the great thing is that if you check a book out more than once, those highlights will still be there. So if I were to return this book, didn't finish it, wanted to check it out again a year from now, I'll still be able to see the highlights that I had made from that title. So kind of fun how that works if that's something you're into. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this book and then move over to audiobooks, and then we'll pause again for any questions that have come through about what I've talked about in this segment. To get out of a book, sometimes this is where people get a little stuck too, but to get out of a book, again, you'll just tap in the center of your screen to pull up all of the outside options. And then up in the upper left corner, we've got our back button that I'll just tap back, and it's going to bring me back to my shelf. If I wanted to go browse the library's collection, I could do that by tapping on that library icon. But for today, we're going to stay in the shelf because I want to just show you a couple features in the audiobook. Now I'm going to scroll down and find a different audiobook. I think this one I was listening to a bit already. It might be familiar to some of you. But I'm going to tap Open Audiobook for Where the Crawdad Sings. And I'm going to try not to play it. Well, we might play it a little bit just so you can kind of see how it works. But this is what it would look like. It's pretty simple to navigate. The play button looks just like the play button that you might have had on a DVD player, a VCR player, camcorder. Again, it's that universal symbol for play. And so to start your book, I'm going to let it run.
Penguin Random House Audio presents Where the Crawdads Sing.
All right, and to pause
by
it,
Delia Owen.
To pause it, I'll just press that pause button. If I wanted to go forwards, backwards, I can do so. Sometimes in the car, if I'm listening, I might find I've spaced out for a minute or two. And so I'll just real quick tap that 15-second back button. That's what that means. 15 seconds backwards, 15 seconds forwards. Just like with the ebook, if I tap, sorry, I did that kind of quick, right below the play button, if I tap where it says part 1, that's indicating which chapter I'm in, basically. So if I tap on that, it'll bring me to the entire table of contents. And then I can skip to different chapters and listen to them. So right now I just skipped to chapter 8. Just like before, I can also skip forward by using forward or backwards by using these little buttons to the sides. And that's how you navigate audiobooks. Now there's a couple, I'm a big audiobook listener personally. So there's a couple features that are fun to point out to people. And one is that you can adjust the speed that the audiobook plays. I'm going to tap on that little, it looks like a speedometer button actually in your car. And so I'm going to tap on that, and the current speed, the default speed is going to be 1. Now you might find certain narrators talk real slow. And so you might find that you want to speed them up a little bit. And there's some presets that you can do over here, kind of below the current speed. And then over here, if you want to find over on the right-hand side, it kind of looks like a scale, the slider bar to the right-hand side where you can fine tune the speed accordingly. So, for a lot of authors, I generally tend to gravitate between 1.25 and 1.4. So when I want that 1.4, if it's a particularly slow narrator, I use this fine tune button. And just as a heads up, this is going to stay. Excuse me. This is going to stay at whatever speed you set it at until you change it again. So to get out of that, I'm just going to tap outside of that, and then you'll see the speed. Sometimes I accidentally hit that button and I'm like, why is it going so slow? Or why are they talking so fast? And I realize I have changed my speed. So if that happens to you, check there first. Another feature that the audiobook offers is a sleep timer. So very similar layout to our speed or our playback speed. You can choose a preset off, which is the default, end of chapter, and then however many minutes is going to appear here. If you want to listen to it for 15 minutes or 30. And once again, you've got that fine tune option over on the right-hand side to tweak it as much as you want based on what your listening needs are. If you want to bookmark a book, actually it's the farthest right-hand side. It's just one single bookmark. So if I wanted to bookmark, I'm going to scroll forward, kind of scroll by dragging your finger on that timeline down at the bottom, that keyboard looking place. Oh, I think I went too far. There we go. If I wanted to add a bookmark, I would just tap on that bookmark icon in the upper right corner. And then I see this tiny little bookmark down here at the bottom show up on my timeline. There is actually a way to add highlights to an audiobook. To do that, I'm going to have to play the audiobook. So I'll just explain it real fast ahead of time. I'm going to press and hold my finger on the little bookmark icon. So I'm going to press play by tapping the play button. It's going to play and I don't want to talk over it. So I'll do that. And then I'm just going to press and hold that bookmark
Crowd
icon.
applause. Shells, the best secret keepers of all. Chapter 11. Croaker Sacks Full. 1956.
And you'll see it light up yellow.
In the winter of 1956, when Kaio was 10, Pa came hobbling to the shack less and less often.
And then sorry, spoiler alert. No, just kidding. And then when I let go, I'll see that highlighted section on my timeline down here at the bottom on my keyboard. To view your bookmarks and highlights, to the left of the bookmark button, so in between the sleep timer and the bookmark, you've got this kind of stack of bookmarks. So think of it as several different notes you've taken. You can tap on that and you can see all the places that you've highlighted, you've bookmarked. Yeah, so that is audiobooks. Pretty simple. I'll be honest, I don't use that highlight feature a lot, or the bookmark. I do use the bookmark feature, but adjusting the speed is pretty great. So I'm going to go back and pause now and ask if there's any questions. Oh, I'm forgetting one thing. Actually, throw your questions into the chat. I do see a couple coming through. But while you're thinking of any or typing, I want to show you one more thing. Sorry, I got out of that real quick without telling you what I did. To get back to your shelf in the upper left corner, just like we did for the ebook, I'm going to tap that back button. Sorry, my fingers are just click happy today. Again, that's why I tend to get lost in Libby, not lost, but out of where I'm meant to be. So as a quick reminder to know where you are, to get back to where you want it to be, just go ahead and tap. And in this case, I'm going to tap the stack of books on the bottom to bring us back to our shelf. Shelf, we were in loans. And real quick before we pause, I want to talk about how to manage a loan. Now, you'll see here the option manage loan. So we talked about how to open, we talked about the due date, and then you'll see here that it's kind of giving you a progress bar. So in this case, I've listened to 19% of this audiobook. And since I clicked forward to chapter 9 or whatever in the other book, it's now showing me at 58%. However, if we want to manage our loan, I'm going to tap on that and show you a couple different options. I like this manage loan because it gives me an exact date and time that this book is due, which again, if you're racing the clock, really helpful information to have. It's like, did I check this book out when I woke up at 6 a.m. or did I check this book out when I was going to bed at 10 p.m.? Because that can be a big difference in your day. But if you want to return a book early, you're more than welcome to do so. It will automatically come off of your account after that 14-day period. But maybe you finish it in 9 days and you kind of just want to clean off your shelf, or there's 40 people waiting. And so you want to return that book early. You can certainly do that by tapping return early. It's going to prompt you just one more time to confirm, like it did with borrowing, and you would just tap return right there. I'm going to go back to your loans though, because I just want to show you the other option. Under manage loan, you'll also see the option to renew loan, but you'll see if you look closely, you'll notice it's kind of grayed out here. And that's because you can only renew your loan 3 days before it's due, or within the 3-day window before it's due. So you'll see I've got this little hourglass icon. When I tap on that right here, it's going to say you're renewing your loan. But then instead of that renew button or borrow button like we saw earlier, it's going to say it's too early to renew this loan. You will be able to renew it in 4 days. So just know that you can renew books, but if you don't see that renew option, it's probably just because you're not in that 3-day window period, 3 days before your book is due. So that's the only time that you can renew a loan. But it's nice that they tell you that, that they kind of give you that exact time. So just a little bit about managing your loan. And of course, as I already said, if you don't do anything, it'll automatically come off of your account, which is another reason why we love digital books, because we don't get fines. There's no way to be overdue with your digital book, for better or for worse. All right, with that, I'm going to take a sip of water and pause for questions. Kelsey, you're up.
Hey there. Okay, so we had a question about offline listening. Can you download an audiobook to an MP3 player?
Oh, an MP3 player. First of all, I'm really glad that question came up, because it does bring up a difference between what I'm showing you on the screen and what you might be seeing on your device. What I'm showing you on the screen is libbyapp.com. So when you're using libbyapp.com, you don't download it. You actually need an internet connection to read, listen, browse. If you're using a mobile device, the Libby app on your iPhone or your tablet, that's actually going to be downloaded, and it's going to look different here. This little cloud icon, it's a cloud here, which means it's actually still in the cloud, which means it's online on the internet. But if you were browsing on your mobile device, for example, you would see your library card here with a little check mark next to it. And that means it's downloaded onto your device. To go back to the question about the MP3 player, can I get a little bit more information about the type of MP3 player? Because the answer will vary.
Looks like the answer is just a small audio device, no other abilities.
Yeah, so you know what? That's not something I know off the top of my head. So that is a great example of something I will look into. MP3. Probably not with Libby. Unless you can get the Libby app on your MP3 player, it won't work. But there's also the ability to what we generally refer to as side loading. Sometimes with some e-readers and MP3 players, we side load content onto it, which basically just means we have a computer. We plug the MP3 player into the computer, and then we click and drag a book, an audiobook, onto the MP3 player. So it shows up like a little USB would, and you just drag and drop your book onto your MP3 player. So that's what I'm guessing the solution would be. But again, you wouldn't be using the Libby app. You'd probably be using the Overdrive website. But I will get details. That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking. I'll mention now, in case there's any questions coming in through the chat or any other information. The library does offer, I usually talk about this at the very end, but the library does offer 30-minute appointments for any specific technology question that you might have, or any specific technology barrier or frustration that you might come across in your day-to-day life. And this MP3 player is like the perfect question for these tech times. So they're 30-minute appointments where we set it up in advance. We pair you with a staff member that can, do any research ahead of time. And that way, when you come in, you can bring your device. We kind of can walk you through the steps of how to accomplish your goal, and then teach you how to do it in the process of doing it. And this would be one of those things where I might send you the information, but at the end of the day, just also know that you can set up an appointment at any library location where we would sit down and kind of help you walk through these steps together. So I love this question. That's a great example. Any other questions in the chat? Not sure if you're muted, Kelsey.
All right, Casey, it really did not want to unmute me.
Okay, no worries.
I think the question is, the MP3 player is a standalone device without internet access. In that case, I know that Libby and Overdrive occasionally have the app on a web browser, not necessarily on the Libby app, to download an offline version of it. Is that something that through the web browser you could download is that what you meant by side loading?
I would, yes,
yeah,
I will look into it and send more send up a real answer, not a guess. But my guess would be, if it's possible, you would download it onto a computer, just like you might download a PDF, and then you would drag and drop. You plug the MP3 player into the computer and then drag and drop the book from the computer onto the MP3 player. That's what we lovingly refer to as side loading, because we do it from the side. We plug most computers have that plug on the side to connect your standalone device with a computer. But I will send more specific instructions because I don't know it off the top of my head. Other questions? I'm going to go with no. We're running short on time, so this class always takes a full 90 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll obviously pause for questions again in another couple minutes. But I do want to talk about loans. Excuse me. I do want to talk about hold. So I'm going to go back to my shelf, which there's two ways to do it from here. I can just tap on my shelf from the bottom of the screen, or basically in the upper left is a back button that would bring me back to my main shelf too. So we've already covered loans. Next up, we're going to talk about holds, which are really great in Libby. So this is going to be where you'll go to see any books that you've placed on hold. You can kind of see how much longer it's going to take, when it's going to be available, and then manage that hold if anything's changed since you've placed the hold. Excuse me. So right now I've just tapped on holds, and as you'll see here, let's see, a few of the books I've placed on hold are a variety of different steps along the way. Oh, sorry. I should mention down here at the bottom, if I want a quick access to the book that I'm kind of currently in the middle of, it's going to appear down here right above my navigational icons. So that audiobook that we were just listening to, where the crawdad sings, if I wanted to quickly get back into it, it's always going to be right there for me, available, without me having to first go to my shelf, then go to my loans, like I showed you how to do. However, if that's in the way, you can always close that little quick access point by tapping on that X down here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to do that just for the purpose of today. But just know that that's just meant to be a quick access way to get right back into the book that you were reading. But to go back to our holds now, so I'm viewing my holds, and I wanted to show you how to manage your holds. So sometimes things might happen and you might need to suspend your hold. So a lot of times I'll put a bunch of books on hold and then they'll all come up all at the same time. It's a little bit of a game that power users tend to play, but up here at the top, it's first kind of telling me, so for this book, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, it's telling me it's available soon. If I scroll down and see the next books, it's telling me it's about a 6-week wait. As I scroll down, it's giving me in the order of how long the wait is. And then, so the next book, the John Grisham book, is about 16 weeks. And then down here at the bottom, this audiobook by Alison Pataki is about 18 weeks. Now I'm going to talk, there's other information here, and I'm going to talk about that as we kind of go along. But first of all, I want to show you how to manage your hold. If I tap on manage hold, I've got a few different options here. One is to suspend my hold. So if I know that this is about 6 weeks wait, and I'm not going to have time in the next 6 weeks to read that book, I don't want to lose my spot. So I'm going to tap on suspend, and I can suspend this hold anytime between, well, 1 day and 180 days. So I might just suspend it. And then whenever my time period is up, so I might say, let me suspend it for, let's do 30 days. Then I'm going to tap update hold. The great thing, and you can always change that too, if you change your mind or something comes up and you need more time or less time, the great thing about suspending your hold is that you don't lose your place in line. So I might be 14th in line now, but 30 days from now, I might be number 1. And I don't lose that spot. So that's the great thing about suspending holds. And Libby makes it really easy. I should mention, Kelsey reminded me of this, that you can do that with print books too. So if, again, like there's all your books come in at the same time, if you want to avoid kind of losing them, you can go into the library's catalog, suspend, or give us a call, log in with your library card and suspend your hold for a certain period of time too. So just to know that that's an option, because I know sometimes it can be a little hard to read all your books. You walk out with a big stack of books that you've been waiting 6 months for. And the same goes for the digital environment, but just know that you can tap manage hold. Oops, sorry. Let me show you this one first. Tap manage hold. Here it will show you this is the book we just suspended for 30 days. Again, if I wanted to tap on that, I could make any changes. Maybe I only want to suspend it for 20 days, update hold. And those changes are then made. So I'm going to go back to your holds by tapping in the upper left corner. And now it's showing me that that one title, I can suspend for 20 days. Now I want to go back up here to this first book because this happened this morning and I wanted it. I was trying to time it so that you guys could see it, but I was going to lose it if I did. When your hold becomes available, you have 3 days to check it out. So you'll get a notification saying Green Lights is available for you to check out. And then you'll have a 3-day period. It's literally to the minute, like 3 days to the minute of when you need to go into Libby and tap on that borrow button. The awesome thing about Libby is that when you do that, if you don't have time to do that, if you miss that 3-day window, because this happens to me all the time where I want to wait to the very last minute to make sure I've got the 14 days. I'm finishing up a current book. Want to do that before checking out my next one. And you miss it, they will automatically bump you down to the next spot in line. They'll automatically send it to the next person. But then you'll be back to that number 1 spot in the holds queue. So you don't lose your spot entirely. You get one chance to forget before then. If you miss it a second time, they'll just assume that you meant to cancel it and you don't actually want to read that book. And in that period, you also have the ability to manage hold. So I missed this checkout. I was supposed to check this out in the last 3 days and I didn't. So you'll see it automatically is telling me it's going to deliver again. Actually, I changed this. It will deliver it again the next available copy. So if we have multiple copies, it might be available tomorrow. But if we have one copy, then and the next person checks it out, it might be two weeks-ish, 2-ish weeks. Anyway, it's just super great feature. That's why it also doesn't give you an exact date when it says available soon. Someone could return it early. Someone could, wait 3 days to check it out and then have it for 14 days. So there is a little bit of a guessing game at work here when you're managing your holds, but it's all kind of part of the fun. So just so you're aware of what options you have. The other option, I don't think I showed it yet, was if you tap on manage holds. Sorry, I did that really quick. If I tap manage hold, I've got suspend hold, which we already talked about. This one's already been suspended. And then cancel hold is another option. So sometimes this happens to me. I'll put a book on hold, but then it'll pop up in the lucky day collection and I'll get it weeks before I thought I would. So then I like to, sometimes I forget, so it doesn't really matter. But sometimes I'll remember if I'm cleaning up my hold shelf and I'll tap cancel hold. Again, it's going to confirm first, which is also great. So it's going to, you're canceling your hold, and then I'll confirm by tapping cancel hold, and it'll kind of twirl off like it just did. That's a little bit about managing holds. There is an option to suspend all your holds. Let me go up here in the upper right corner. There's actions button. If I tap on the actions button, it's going to give me, number one, the option to synchronize shelf. So if you're using Libby across a few different devices, so maybe your computer, your phone, your tablet, and they're not all aligned, you can just manually force it to synchronize. But what I wanted to mention was this option to suspend all holds. So sometimes we have situations in life that happened and we just kind of have to put a pause on everything. If that happens to you, just know that you have the option in Libby. It's probably not the first thing you're going to think about, to be honest, but just if you remember that this is here, if not, feel free to give us a call. We'll help you as well. But if you just need to suspend everything, just know that you can do that also for up to 180 days. So I'm just going to suspend everything and then update holds. And again, if anything changes, you can undo that. You can go back up, and change that suspend all holds. But as you'll see now, they're listed to be, well, this one's probably less than, or more than that. So 30 days from now. So that's a little bit about managing your holds. Now, I do just want to touch real quick on tags before we pause for questions. And then I'm going to prioritize the question that came through. I do have more stuff about in the settings, but I know the person asked the question about the library card. So we'll cover that first thing after we come back from questions. But real quick, before we pause for questions, let me just mention, I showed you how to tag a book at the very beginning, but this is how you then actually go find all the books you've tagged. So I don't use tags a ton, so I don't have a bunch built up in here, but we talked about loans, we talked about holds, and to find my tags, I'm going to tap that tags button. And then there's those self-care tags that I tagged earlier. There are smart tags in Libby. So these are tags that are automatically going to be applied, and you'll see any books that you've borrowed will have a tag. I think other tags are sampled. If you've sampled a book, that's going to be tagged as sampled. So just so that you're aware, once you tag everything, where to find it. Okay, pause for questions. So Kelsey, do we have any questions on like finding holds, tags?
Just once your hold is available, the question is, do they notify you at the email?
Oh, that's a great question. And it really depends on your notifications. And we're actually covering that next when we talk about managing notifications. Basically, It depends on your device. And it depends on which notification type you select. So just like with your text messages, you've got different options. It's going to be the same with your holds notifications. And I'll cover that early on in the next segment as well. Any other questions? It's another good one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the timeline real quick because it's just the last little icon here. There's not much to say about the timeline, but basically it's just a history of everything you've borrowed, placed a hold on. It's this little clock icon that I mentioned at the very beginning. And as I scroll down, you'll see the different titles that we've borrowed on this library card. So of course, over time, that's going to get longer and longer and longer. So just so you know a little bit about what the timeline offers. If you want to have it not track you, up in the upper right corner, there's the actions button. And again, there's a few different options if you want to export your timeline, so everything you've done, if you want to delete or remove everything to clear it out. But if you don't want it actively tracking your activity, I guess, just you can tap disable activity recording there too. So just so that you're aware, some people love having a history of everything they've read and looked at, and other people don't want that sort of information. So just know that there's options for either of you. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about, we've talked about search, we've talked about browsing. I'm going to hop over that middle menu icon. We talked about anything you've checked out, your loans, your holds, your tags, and then we just very quickly went over timeline. Last but not least, we're going to go through your menu options by tapping on that very first, that very center. We call it the hamburger menu. It's basically the three horizontal lines stacked on top of each other. And here is where you're going to see, we're going to talk about your notifications, and I'll then talk about adding a different library to your Libby app. Now, your notifications are going to appear at the very top here. So right now, the first I actually have 3 notifications, and I know that because I have 3 dots here in the middle of the screen. I'm currently reading notification number 1, which is about syncing my wish list. So anybody transitioning from the old Overdrive app over to Libby may want to sync their title. So it basically means to pull all their wish list that they've been building in the Overdrive app for the last 10 years or whatever. They can import all of those titles into Libby by syncing. So that's one notification. If you're a new user, you'll see that option. To see my other notifications, real quick, before I do that, I want to bring your attention down at the bottom of the screen, because next to my hamburger menu, there's a tiny little orange dot. It's really kind of subtle, but when we talk about notifications, I do want to mention that badge, that notification badge option. And now as I swipe through on my screen, I'm going to read the rest of my notifications. So I mentioned this, that my hold had lapsed because I get that one time I got my notification to borrow the book, missed my 3-day window. It's going to automatically give me one more chance and deliver me the next copy available. And if this is just my notification telling me as much. I'm going to swipe through my last notification. Same thing happened with that John Grisham book. So that deliver later feature. Now I'm going to keep swiping because once you read all of your notifications, you're going to be at this place where you can then manage your notifications. So if you don't see this manage notification section, it's because you've got notifications in front of it that you need to swipe through and address. But I'm going to tap on, and you'll notice now that I've gotten all my notifications, that little badge icon at the bottom by my menu, that's gone now. It's kind of like a little text message. You know, when you get a text message and there's like a little star, or maybe the number of text messages you need to read. That's a notification from Libby, one type of notification. So I'm going to tap manage notification. And here is where I can actually set the ways I get notified and for what. So if I have a loan expiring, I like to get a notification telling me that. Now, here's the other difference that you'll notice me using libbyapp.com. And what, if you're following along on a mobile device, what you might see. So if you use libbyapp.com, your three options are ignore. So don't send me a notification. Actually, I'm going to do that for this one. Menu badge, which was that little dot down at the bottom that I showed you a minute or two ago down there, that little orange dot, that's considered a menu badge. So if I want to, it's a subtle notification. And then my third option to get notified if I'm using libbyapp.com is to get an email notification. And so maybe I want an email notification when my hold is ready, but not if I lose a hold, not if my hold is lapsing. Or maybe I want it lapsing, but not after it's lapsed. Like, okay, enough is enough. I already know you've told me 3 times. So here is where you can kind of fiddle with your notification settings. And I would recommend playing with this a bit to see what works for you. If you're using the Libby app, so I do just want to point out the difference with the Libby app. So if you're using, I'm pulling up my phone right now. If you're using the Libby app, you're going to see ignore, menu badge, but instead of email notice, instead you're going to see notification. And what notification means is it's kind of like a pop-up on your phone. So if you have like your text messages set up, or maybe I'm trying to think of other notifications you might get, your phone's locked, screen's dark, and then something happens and you see, like, you get a notification on your screen. That is going to be the option for on your phone when it says notification. If you use a mobile device, that's actually really helpful. I know some people really like email notice, and if you like email notice, just come to libbyapp.com and log in and check this box here. If you don't care about email, you don't need to do that step, but on your device, if you set notification, the nice thing is that when it tells you your hold's ready, you just tap on the notification. It brings you right to that place where you can borrow. So it just depends on what your preferences are, but this is definitely where you're going to go to set those preferences. And then if there's any questions or you can't remember, down here at the very bottom, it explains the different types of notifications and kind of gives you that little visual right here. And again, if you're looking at this on a mobile device, you're going to see different options here. You're going to see menu badge like here, but instead you're going to see that notification option here. I love the notification. So, and there's actually, the way I have it set up is on libbyapp.com. I've selected email notice. So I get the emails. Actually, I get the emails for when my hold is ready on libbyapp.com. But on my phone, I also get the notification. So I have it set both ways on my phone and through libbyapp.com, which sounds a little crazy, but I want to make sure I don't miss my holds. And if that didn't answer your question, go ahead and throw it into the chat, see if I can help. But I'm going to go ahead and move on for now, just for time's sake, because I want to just talk about one last thing, and that is adding a different library. You can add a separate library card. So sometimes people manage a parent's card or a child's card, or they're a caregiver, and you have multiple family members with all different cards, but you kind of want to be able to check books out for them, or search for books under their card. To do that, you would just tap on this one card. And if you wanted to add a card, you could tap plus and then add another card here too. So this is if you have another Martin County Library card. I'm just going to add in my card real quick. Again, you can rename your card and tap next. And now you'll see how it looks to have more than one card. And if you want one to be your primary card, you'll just tap activate and have it switch. So I'm going to have Libby Demo be the library card. But to get back to that question from before, I'm going to tap on my back button. Because like I was saying, we know a lot of you are fortunate enough to have lots of library, or at least 2 that you're members of, and you can add in other ones here. So if you lived in New York City or New Orleans or anywhere new, you could search for the library same ways we did before: zip code, branch name, town name, and then you could see your library. Again, you're going to need to sign in with your library card here. It's going to ask you for your library card number, possibly your PIN, depending on what the library's requirements are. And then you will have access to both of those library collections all in one app. That's about as far as I can take you, because unfortunately I don't have a library card for another library system, but that's fine. We have a lot in our collection that I love. But I did just want to point that out. Go ahead and throw any questions into the chat if that didn't answer the question. And while we do that, we're just wrapping up now. I think we lost some time with some troubleshooting at the beginning. I apologize. But I did just want to mention that Libby has great help support too. So if you're struggling with something, feel free to search within Libby by tapping Get Some Help. And then if you search, like I might do tags, like I was having trouble syncing my tags earlier. Number one, it's quite rare when there are issues, but when you do, the support that's provided directly in that app is quite helpful. You can search by keyword. In my case earlier, I couldn't find the answer right here, so I went to the Libby help site, which I really like. And then I was able to kind of find the answer. I think it was when Libby doesn't sync between devices. That's what was happening. So just know that there's support. Of course, we would love to help you with the library too. We'll probably do the same thing. We'll probably go into the Libby help site and see if we can find the solution that way. But of course, that's what we're here for. And we want to make sure you're on track with your reading. I'm going to go ahead and just skim through my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. I know I went through some stuff quite quickly at the end, but Kelsey, were there any other questions coming through in the chat that I can try to answer?
Not any questions. We just some compliments and said people are really looking forward to getting started with Libby.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. This class is like a full 90 minutes and my pause to coughing probably adds time to it, but we hope you like it as much as we do. Like I said at the beginning, we found it to be very user-friendly. Kelsey, I'm sure you can chime in too, but our last ebook provider was a lot of work for our team, a lot of phone calls, trying to help people over the phone, and we don't really get those anymore.
I generally once, especially with this kind of information you're providing, Casey, once folks can download this right on the computer, right on the phone or the iPad or whatever device they're using, you're right, it's very user friendly, and we got some great titles there.
Yeah, and I will just obviously if you're here, you're already a digital content reader or listener, but with the shipping delays right now, one of the things we're loving about our digital collection, those of us that do ebooks and audiobooks, is that even though there might be a shipping delay with the print versions, we're able to just click a button and buy the ebook version of a book. And so there's been a lot of the holds lists aren't moving as fast with our print collection these days because we're not getting as many copies as we ordered. Because publishers are trying to give everybody a few copies rather than one library, which is good. That's good for us because we're not a very big library. But with Libby, we're just able to click a button and, we've just added 5 copies to our collection when we see 30 holds. And I will say I feel like our team does a really good job of managing those holds queues too. So hope you like it. Like I said, 2 weeks from now, my coworker will be talking about e-readers. So today was all about reading on Libby, but if you prefer a dedicated e-reader, join us then. You can still manage your holds and check out books on Libby, but then reading them will be a different experience with a dedicated e-reader. So with that, I'll do one last call for questions. And I'll thank Kelsey for being a wonderful co-host and coworker in general. And have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much.